Good morning, my friends. How are you? So, today we are on part 4 in our series on everyday immortality. And if you're enjoying this dialogue, this discussion, please let me know so I can continue with it. I am seeing that you're mostly enjoying it, but I would also ask you that if you really want to go deep into freedom from all conditioning and experience the meta human that you are, then you go back to some of these videos and listen again, probe deeply for yourself, and then decide whether any of what I say makes sense or not, because it may not to a lot of you, but to a lot, perhaps it will. So today's topic is very interesting. I'm going to talk about freedom from karma and ignorance. But what I'd also like to do before I start is share with you the latest issue, I just mentioned the latest issue of the New Scientist magazine, and you can see that the cover story is fascinating. Is the universe conscious? So I will share with you what I think is correct about this article, and also I will share with you where I disagree. So, but it is very interesting that slowly science is catching on the idea of consciousness and the universe being connected. This title is not quite right. Is the universe conscious? The answer is no. You are conscious, and the universe is a projection of your consciousness. And that projection is species specific. We've discussed that before, but this is getting pretty close. Panpsychism, and I will discuss panpsychism. But today, let us move on to our discussion on everyday immortality. And that means shifting our identity to our true self and getting freedom, finding freedom from what's called karma and also ignorance. So, the word ignorance is used very interestingly in Eastern wisdom traditions. So, ignorance is to ignore. Ignorance is the activity of ignoring. And what are you ignoring? You're ignoring truth. So when you are ignoring truth, then you are in a state of ignorance. Ignorance. Ignoring the truth. Ignoring truth. And when you actually know truth and experience truth, then you find freedom from ignorance. And in the deeper understanding of reality, then all knowledge is ignorance. All knowledge is ignorance. All knowledge is ignorance. But knowingness is truth. All knowledge is ignorance. Knowingness is truth. So what do we mean by knowledge in this particular instance? In this, we mean the intellectual understanding of experience. So when we go to some of the ancient wisdom traditions, such as the experiential knowledge of the Buddha, or the teachings that come from the sages of the Upanishads, or also the rishis and also Tibetan masters. And then what we find is they describe ignorance as coming from 3 sources. Okay, first of all, they define ignorance as all coming from experience. All ignorance comes from experience, and the understanding that experience does not give us access to truth. So let me go over the different types of ignorance that the wisdom traditions talk about. The first kind of ignorance is called innate ignorance. So what is innate ignorance? It is the result of the belief that the senses provide access to truth. Now we know that, and we've discussed this many, many times before, that the senses provide access to a narrow bandwidth of perceptual activity, not to truth. You do not have access through your senses to what truth is. You only have access through your senses to your perceptions, and through your mind to the interpretation of those perceptions. Furthermore, those perceptions are human perceptions, not the perceptions of an insect with 100 eyes or any other species, a bat that echolocates, etc. So innate ignorance comes from the belief that only the 5 human senses have access to truth, but they don't. It's obvious that 5 senses have access only to a narrow bandwidth of species-specific perceptual activity, in this case, human. Similar to other mammals, but certainly different from innumerable species. So that's the first kind of ignorance, the belief that the senses provide access to truth. The second kind of ignorance is called cultural ignorance. It's a result of actually being bound by the beliefs and concepts and images and archetypes, even though there are amazing stories embedded in those archetypes. But cultural ignorance is the belief and the beliefs and the thought systems and the constructs of a particular culture or a particular religion or a particular dogma or a particular ideology or a particular philosophical or scientific model. Whilst the model itself is very useful for looking at aspects of reality, if you mistake the model for the reality, that's cultural ignorance. Whatever the model is, it could be a scientific model. And there's a difference between scientists and what we call the apostles of scientism. Science is a methodology of experiment, observation, validation, etc., falsification. Scientism is a dogma that says science is the only access to truth, when of course we know science is another way of modeling the truth, and a small way, because science depends on the innate ignorance of the senses, right? So cultural conditioning and what we call innate conditioning are therefore complementarities. They go together, they reinforce each other. Cultural conditioning reinforces innate conditioning, and they're both forms of ignorance, and both of them reinforce ignorance. And then there's a third component to our ignorance, and that third component is the whole understanding of reality through a dualistic window. Dualistic means dividing things that were undivided in the first place, and then trying to figure out how to unite them again. It's a very interesting pursuit that humans have. We cut up things and dismember them, and then remember them to go back to what we cut up. So dualism is the artificial subject-object split, it is the artificial mind-body split, the mind-brain split, the biological organism and environment split, the space-time split, the mass-energy split, on and on. So we divide things that were actually different aspects of the one reality. Mind and body, space and time, mass and energy, wave and particle, on and on. And this dualism, me and other, friend and enemy, etc., etc., woman and man, child and adult, birth and death, all these divisions that actually obscure truth, right? All these divisions obscure truth of awareness as the only non-changing absolute reality, which gives rise to all beliefs, which gives rise to all provisional modes of knowing and thinking and feeling and imagination and creativity, all provisional, leading to provisional identities, and then ultimately getting organized into dogma, religion, philosophy, science, etc. So these three types of ignorance are what imprison us, and this prison is called the prison of karma. Karma means interpretation of past experience. As simple as that. Karma is the experience that binds us to habitual ways of thinking and feeling and speaking and believing and behaving and activity. And since all experience is fundamentally ignorance, because it veils reality, it fragments reality, then all interpretation of experience, which we call rational thought, actually perpetuates ignorance. Why? Because rational thought is already built on the notion that what we call empirical facts, which are species-specific modes of knowing and experience and snapshots of experiences, rational thought observes those facts or is a consequence of the idea that I am the observer and what I'm observing is outside of me. Okay, it's based on the dualistic subject-object split, but it's also based on innate and cultural ignorance. Rational thought, once again, rational thought is based on innate and cultural ignorance and dualism. And all our false constructs, the superstition of matter. Nobody has ever shown the existence of a substance called matter. You don't have access to such a substance. You have only access to your perceptions. And yet these magical lies, space and time, mind and matter, organism and the universe, as some people have called them, magical lies. These magical lies are the basis of the survival of the biological organism that we are. Because the biological organism itself is a magical lie. As a physical object, the biological organism is itself as a lie. When you say, I have a body, then that's a magical lie. Okay? There's no such thing as a physical body. What we call a physical body is a changing perceptual activity in the form of sensations. That's it. Amorphous sensations. You put a narrative together and there you are, a body. You put a narrative together, there you are, a mind. You put a narrative together and there you are, a provisional identity. So that's called the prison of karma. Karma is being bound and imprisoned by innate ignorance, cultural ignorance, dualism, artificial subject-object split, naive realism, the idea that matter is the ontological primitive of the universe, when actually matter is a very interesting and useful construct. Okay, so going back to our latest issue of New Scientist, is the universe conscious? Answer is no. You are conscious and you project the universe, and the universe that you project is a human universe, and you are bound by it. And you're bound by it because of innate conditioning, cultural conditioning, dualism, subject-object, false constructs, superstition, etc., etc. So what? An illusion feels real, so it's real. And the experience is real. Yes, otherwise it wouldn't be a good illusion. If you know how the magician pulls out the rabbit from the hat, then it's no longer interesting. If you know the trick. If you know the trick of how you're projecting the universe right now, then it's not an illusion. Or because now you figured out the trick. Okay. So these are concepts we make up. We make up. This is illusion. Illusion is something that feels real but isn't fundamentally. So your body feels real but it isn't fundamentally. The world appears real but isn't fundamentally. The mind appears real but isn't fundamentally. The personality appears real but isn't fundamentally. They're all shifting states of being. And who is shape-shifting? You are. And along with your shape-shifting, the whole universe is shape-shifting. With every thought, with every breath, with every movement, with every choice, with every understanding, with every feeling, with every creative expression, with every insight, with every inspiration, with every movement, with every flicker of experience, you change the geometry of the entire universe, because that which we call I am is prior to I am Deepak Chopra. This is so crucial that it's worth repeating. All human suffering comes from the false illusion of separation, the false construct, useful construct of matter, energy, information, very useful constructs, but still veiling the truth. Lift the veil. That's actually the meaning of the veil. Lift the veil, and you see behind the veil the hidden beauty of the cosmic mind, the cosmic intelligence that is differentiating itself into all forms, all phenomena, and all experience and all ignorance as well. But without the ignorance, the biological organism would not survive. The illusion of the biological organism depends on the illusion of the world. No mind, no body, no world. No, they all go together. But what are they? They are fluctuations of the self. Shiva and Shakti. That's it. Shiva and Shakti. So, how do we find freedom from karma and ignorance? Instantly. Instantly. And we do it by shifting our identity from the body-mind to that which is experiencing the body-mind. I am that. In which the body-mind world is a changing scenery. Said it many times. I am that. Tattvamasi, Sat Chitananda, Shiva Shakti, all actually address these three types of ignorance. Innate ignorance, cultural ignorance, and ignorance that comes from dualistic false modeling. All the modeling is useful and practical, but it is still a modeling. Who or what is the model maker? You are. You are. So as we step out of the river of conditioning and memory and see the world as if for the first time, we can see that our models of reality create our experiences of reality, and our experiences of reality reinforce the models of reality, and then we get bamboozled into mistaking the models for the reality, the map for the territory. And just like you cannot eat a menu, you have to taste it, okay? You have to taste the food. The model cannot give you access to reality because it ignores innumerable hidden variables even these modelings for COVID-19 that we are seeing now, they're accurate to some extent, but there are hidden variables: weather patterns, temperature, humidity, traffic, density of population in trains and planes and shopping malls, mass migration, so many factors, economic factors, socio-economic factors, zip code. It's very difficult to model reality. Too many things influencing everything, everything entangled with everything. So who are we? We are entangled beings watching the show, but so embedded in the show that we are like this person in the cinema theater who is constantly triggered by every scene in the movie, and therefore at the mercy of every character in the movie, including the character you think is you. And so the movie is so good that you're in it. And once in a while you have to pinch yourself to remind yourself that actually you're in the theater watching it. Just take that attitude and watch every story that you have and be free of the story. Then you'll know that actually you're the infinite storyteller, and actually the whole universe is infinite stories projected by sentient beings. Is the universe conscious? No. You are conscious. You are the universe. The universe is your projection. This was the theme in You Are the Universe. This is the theme in Meta-Human. This will be the theme, how to live in that experience 24 hours a day, in waking, dreaming and sleeping. And if you do that, you have found your ticket to freedom. That is what Rumi says when, or what Rumi means when he says, why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open? Vilma Paiva says, Shivoham. Let's make that the mantra for today. Shivoham. I am pure consciousness. Shivoham. Shivoham. Step back and be the witness of every story, and let the witness ultimately sink into the absolute sea of pure awareness. There you will find freedom. Shivoham.